You've also declared war on potholes. So here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and you're listening to Dispatches from Planet Albany, a WCNY podcast about power and politics in state government. This week at the Capitol, Governor Hochul unveiled her budget proposal, a $252 billion spending plan that has gotten lukewarm response from the Democratic majorities in the legislature overall. And to consider what might happen next with the executive budget now that it's in the hands of the legislature, we're joined in the studio and on camera by Shontell Smith, head of the New York practice for Tusk Strategies, where she is a partner. Thanks so much for joining us, Shontell.
Thank you,
And I was going to start, but I imagine you had something you wanted to bring up.
Yes. So I don't journey down to Albany often, but when I do, I am in this Capitol and I see all these signs, some questionable signs, but I don't see the first female leader. I don't see her sign. And she had a very historic race when she ran and won against the Spanos. But I don't see anything.
Well, we would be happy to put up a 2006 Stuart Cousins sign.
Did people give you these signs?
Yes, mostly people give me these.
Mostly.
Or when I'm driving around areas after an election, if I see a sign, I will pick them up off the side of the road. So Biaggi for Congress, I got off the side of the road. Women for Schmidt, side of the road. Some of the Albany ones were ones I picked up.
You were in Syracuse when you got Rachel May?
Rachel May gave me that one. But so if the Senate Democrats want to step up and give me an Andrea Stewart Cousins.
Mike Murphy.
Yeah. I have a Pete Harcum sign that was mailed to me.
What? I don't even see Carl Hasty either. He was the first black speaker.
I would be happy to have a sign for the speaker.
For my black people and my women, but I don't see,
And if we could get Malcolm Smith, the first black Senate Majority Leader, that would be great too.
Let's be clear. Andrea Stewart Cousins is the first female.
Correct.
/ African American female leader. So Malcolm Smith was a blimp because there was a lot of chaos.
And she's now the longest serving Senate Democratic Majority Leader.
I mean, she's greatness. Hence, I came from greatness.
Why do you think she has been successful as a leader? Is it just the product of the large majority she's enjoyed, and so there's more wiggle room to govern? Or is there something about her as a leader that separates her from less successful predecessors?
It's a combination of a couple things. I think when Leader Stewart Cousins became leader, there was chaos within the conference. And I know some people don't like when that's expressed, but there was some chaos. And I think when she came in, I think part of this is being a woman. She had a different approach. It wasn't like strong arm, like Joe Bruno. If you were late to conference, he would penalize you and you'd have to put money in a jar. She just came in with a different approach. The way the leader runs her conference is these are my members. I work for them. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear their ideas, and I want to be thoughtful in coming up with solutions. And I think you also see that with the Speaker of the Assembly. Their brand of leadership is conference first. And I think people in the outside world would benefit if they realize that these leaders listen to their members and try to find solutions to, if you have a problem and you're trying to kill Bill or you're trying to do things, be solution oriented. Because with this new wave of leadership, it's not the speaker and the leader said, no, we're not doing your bill. It's how can we come to a consensus?
Well, you bring up the idea of listening to all the voices. And I think what's important, though, is while she's willing to listen to all the voices, sometimes they don't get their way. And it seems like it's important just to let people kind of vent, especially over on the assembly side of things. I know that they can have these lengthy conferences where people
we had lengthy
complain.
conferences too. But it's not complaining. They're advocating for the people that they represent. Now, me as a staffer, did I always agree? Absolutely not. But they are elected, and their job is to represent and be the voice of the population, they govern. And what I like about both the speaker and the leader, they allow everybody to speak. They allow everyone to be heard. But then the buck as leadership does stop with those two individuals.
So in our last conversation, the first episode Dispatches this year, you put out a call to listeners for questions.
We didn't discuss.
We did not get a lot of questions, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's actually a positive thing.
We did get one person, though, who sent in some questions, and I want to give
questions?
It was a two-part question, and the first part is, from your time in the Senate, who was your favorite lobbyist? And why? I'll add the and why.
I think the and why is very important to who was my favorite lobbyist. I just want to say, as a lobbyist now, lobbyists are hardworking people. You know, when I was in my ivory tower in Gramercy Park those past 2 years during the ban, I really didn't realize how much of this job is a hustle and bustle. Keeping track of multiple clients, going to the meetings, advocate. I respect all lobbyists. With that said, my favorite lobbyist, and I love everybody, so please people don't, I have two favorite lobbyists. One is a personal friend and one James Feathers. And this is why I love Feathers.
And for people who don't know, this is James Featherstonoff.
Yes. I call him Feathers. Like everyone calls him in Albany Feathers. When we were in the minority, a lot of lobby firms wouldn't meet with us. So that's what people don't want to talk about. When we were in the minority, no one really talked to Senate staff. Maybe if they wanted to, maybe as when the Senate got a little closer, when Flanagan was there were some issues, then people started talking to us. So the year before the 2018 session, when it ended, I realized we're going to win the majority. I knew, I felt it. I met with all the major lobby firms. Some were very great, some were not. James Feathers listened to me, and he had been someone that was a lobbyist for a long time. And he was like, this is the smartest idea I've ever seen a staffer proactively know they're going to be in leadership and take the time to meet with everybody, figure out their priorities, and start the working relationship. Because so many people would not meet with us. So he will always have a special place in my heart because he recognized that A, people didn't mess with us, and then B, how smart I am. And then my second favorite lobbyist is just a personal friend, Wayne Lair, because, when times were hard, he wouldn't bother me. He would see me, and he would see the tears and the stress, and he'd be like, hey, and then he'd be like, goodbye. Sometimes lobbyists wouldn't read the room. They'd be like, you're in a...
I'm on a mission. I have to get my job
you're in a 5-hour conference. You didn't sleep. You slept 3 hours, and then someone's sitting outside your office. So every time you use the bathroom or come back in, you got to look at them sitting in the chair outside your office. It's annoying. And it makes you more irate. And then they're just like, oh, I have this issue. Can you, but when you're a staffer, you're sleep deprived and emotionally beaten up. But now as a lobbyist, I see why they sit outside. So I get it. But guys, just don't sit on the benches outside of staff offices. It's quite annoying.
How about sitting outside the Senate Majority Conference Room?
Even more annoying.
Why?
Because you have heated discussions, emotional discussions. There have been conferences where I as a staffer was crying because you hear... I tear up right now thinking about it. The green light, what was it?
Green light legislation 2019?
I cry about it. It was I'm tearing up. It's one of the most emotional conferences we ever had. And just hearing people talk about the different perspectives. I remember Jessica Ramos had me in tears. And then you come out and some lobbyist is like, hey, you're like, what the fuck?
I want artificial intelligence legislation.
Block vote no on the crab legislation. It's get the fuck out of my face. So that's why I just think you got to give people that space. And as a lobbyist, I am so conscious of that. I try not to be in there. Whether the members or the staffers, I just try to give them their grace. I'm like, hey, I'll call you.
Does it matter that Wayne's also very handsome?
Well, I'm a married woman, but let me tell you, when I go out with Wayne, the women, the nasty looks I get, and I'm like, girl, that's my friend. But yes, he looks like, what's that actor's name? Cooney?
George Clooney.
Yeah, that salt and pepper.
Yes.
Because he has that salt and pepper. But I just want to say something. All the lobbyists in Albany and New York City are lovely.
Oh, then you're not going to like the second part of the question.
Who don't I like?
Who's your least favorite
I
lobbyist?
will not do that. I am a professional. I will not. Nope. But I think that lobbyist knows.
So there is one, though. Gotcha.
There's actually two.
There's two. Are they both still lobbying?
They're both still lobbying, and they're not at the same firm, so I don't want people thinking it's two people at the same firm. You know, the advice I would give to lobbyists as a former staffer, staff pay attention to everything. Who you talk to, who you don't talk to, when you acknowledge them, do you give them respect in meetings? When they didn't have power, how did you treat them compared to now that they do have power? Be nice to everybody. And I don't think enough people follow that. I don't know.
Well, I'm surprised that so much of the work that we do in the media is followed and digested by staff. There are staffers here who, when they get a chance or finally feel comfortable to speak to me, like off the record, they are spilling their guts. They are telling how they, I listened to this, or I followed you here.
Y'all
and
are so lucky.
We think you did a bad job with this. I really hated your coverage on that.
I had a rule. I did not speak to press when I worked at the Senate, because if you got me on a bad day, I would really tell you some shit. Mm-hmm. So we just never, Mike Murphy, our comms person, handled all of that. As a consultant now, I listen to all these little podcasts, and I listen to everything because it's a good source of information. But, my love for you really started.
Me personally?
Yeah,
okay.
When you did Tales of the Coup.
Oh, boy.
Because you know why? I was there during the coup. I was on the Senate floor. That shit was traumatizing. And I think people don't understand how, for the Democrats, they had worked, some people worked at the Senate 20 years waiting for the day to be in the majority. Mm-hmm. And then that shady shit was just so messed up that it really impacted a lot of people. This is like a fireside chat. It's like therapy. Thank you.
That's what we're here for. What did you think of the Tales from the Coup series? Because I know we didn't end up speaking for it, so your perspective is not part of that 7-part reflection.
Right, and
what did we get wrong?
You got a lot of shit wrong.
That's okay.
Not a lot of shit wrong, but just a perspective.
What perspective was missing?
The staff perspective. I think people always forget the staff perspective. I thought you handled your framing of Montserrat and Pedro correctly.
But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of staffers at the time that we talked to, in large part because people didn't want to speak. Mostly lawmakers.
You spoke to lawmakers and because I know Diane Savino and there were some other people that were on it. And what's interesting is that they were impacted by the coup, but the legal filings, the parliamentary procedure, all that stuff, most of them didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. So
I think when you do these types of things, it's always important to get staff perspective because there's so many behind the scenes stories to everything. Look how I teared up about Greenlight. There was a behind-the-scenes story of how emotional it was and how hard that was a decision for the collective conference.
Well, sticking with behind-the-scenes stories, in the wake of the governor releasing her budget, the ball's now in the legislature's court, and they're going to put out their own sort of analysis of the budget. What is that process like? How do lawmakers and staff actually get up to speed? Are there briefings that DOB does?
Oh my God, are you crazy? Oh, okay. Let me tell you how I feel so bad for staff right now. So the budget comes out. So the budget came out, Tuesday?
Yep.
You have the briefing immediately. Staff is scouring the books.
And they're going through the actual text?
They're going through the text. They're going through the text. I can't speak for what the Assembly did. I know the Senate did a super highlights, so members could have something immediately. It was this is what was in the budget. And you try to get that out, the next morning. It's a 20-page document, and you, say, hey, these are the things you need to know, how they impact your district. Simultaneously, there are these things called 5-ways, where they invite the staffer from each house in each conference to these meetings to say, hey, this is why we did this in the budget. This is why we proposed that, blah, 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 blah. So right now, for like these next 2 weeks, staff is like studying the budget. They're writing memos. They're doing like little Excels of like the governor's position and putting it in there. And they're briefing the conference. They'll probably start briefing the conference next week.
With the yellow books, the white books?
Yeah, and they're also working on the blue books.
The blue books.
So it's like this huge 300-page book where it's like, you know, you give to members so they can have and know everything in the budget. And it's dialed down in like regular people talk. I don't know how many people really read it, but there you go. Then in addition, you also have to prepare for committee hearings because committee hearings, I think, start like next week.
Yes.
So, and some of that's so uncomfortable. That's like from 9 to 7.
Yeah, depending on the topic.
Like, you remember public protection always goes along. Health is a monster. You're just sitting in the seat, uncomfortable, hot, with the camera on you.
Where would you be for those budget hearings? I mean, I assume those are session days a lot of the times.
They are session days. So the individual staffer for that committee would be in the hearing room. I had to run a whole, staff. So I would usually be in my office because you'd have also going on session days, committee meetings. You got to deal with like member requests and member meetings. It's just so many things going on. And then you get happy because in the February break, that's when people break out and they have these things called like conference committees and they figure out their positions for the one house. Basically that break, people will be meeting and figuring out their positions. And then after that's done, you brief the leader on everybody's positions. And that's when you formulate your one house. Your one house comes out mid-March. Budget negotiations are basically mid-March until the budget ends. Like people think like you have all this time to negotiate. It's literally 2 weeks where you don't sleep.
Well, because the legislature needs to get on the same page too.
And this is what I don't understand. Oh, Governor Hochul's people are going to hate me. But I don't understand this with all governors. So there's extraordinary spending in this budget, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. I think she's really trying to help people. I never understood why governors didn't meet with the leaders or the conferences and be like, what do you want? Get a sense of all their priorities or what they wanted and then put it in the budget.
Because they're conceding some of their negotiations early on then.
This is what happens with all governors. They do this budget thing and the conferences say, oh, okay, all right, okay, great. And then they come out with their one houses that are going to be 1 to 3 to 4 to 10 billion over the existing budget. And then you're fighting over it. Why? Why not start off on like 50% of the same page? Because then the governors are always offended. Like, I put all this money in the budget. And then they're like offended that the legislature is asking for more. But they're asking for more because you didn't consult them and you're doing what you want to do and not what the conferences want to do. There's an easier way to do budgets. I just don't think we figured it out collectively, but there's an easier way to do budgets.
This year's budget seems to actually kind of be a response to that dynamic you mentioned because the proposal from the governor expands spending by about $15 billion compared to the current fiscal year. And the sense I'm getting is that they're looking to preempt some of those conversations about increased spending because normally you'd see a much more conservative approach to growth from the executive budget proposal with the understanding that the legislature is going to come over the top. And I think they're making a calculation that we're already making a lot of these extra investments in this executive budget, and I wouldn't be surprised if the final product is not demonstrably higher. I think it'd only be maybe $1 billion or $2 billion at most higher.
Well, of course, because the governor is going to try to be responsible. She's already getting...
But I think she's already thrown responsibility out the window.
No. There's money in reserves this year. Some of the spending is extra tax receipts. Like, I've been kind of vocal on these inflation checks. And my sister actually told me that I am not one of the people because she loves her checks. So I shouldn't criticize.
Well, she's got 3 kids.
Which I forgot about one the other day. But...
Only 2 with phones.
Exactly. I think there's one-shot money, like there's extra money that's going to be one-shot. So there's a lot of one-shot things in this budget. But I'm telling you, I wish I could plant myself in these leaders' meetings because I know when Governor Hochul sees the proposals from the houses, from the one house, she's going to be like, I already gave you billion over last year. And they're going to be like, great, but we need more. People are still talking about taxing the rich.
And they will until they're not. So you talked about your experience processing the budget as a staffer. How is that different now on the outside? Because you don't get those briefings.
Fucking sucks. Because you're like, wait, what? So you have to read through all the books, the budget briefings, and like try to find Tusk Strategies. We have less clients because we give like really premier service. Like, so I don't have as many clients as the average lobbyist that may have 20, 30 clients. I have like 8 or 10. Big, great ones, but 8 or 10. And boy, oh boy, it's a woozy because you have to look through the books and you have to know all the different issues that they care about and like look through. And like in some clients, you have to be an expert on it. And other clients, you just have to send information their way and they'll have their internal counsels look at it. But it's a lot of work.
And how fast do you have to turn that information around? Is there an expectation the way
when you are paying Tusk Strategy retainers? ASAP. ASAP. Like it's, I said I have I'm fortunate where I have a large staff on the New York team. Thank you, Chris Coffey. But like they are very busy looking at things, and like I believe like if you're not first, you're last. I don't want my client finding stuff out on Twitter. So like we are on it, like on it.
Do you feel then that your understanding of the budget or what's in it is better now because you have to be maybe more hands-on than you were as Senate counsel? No? Okay.
No. I would torture my staff. So like we would have these like like after this budget came out, like if I was counsel right now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be all day, 2-hour briefings on every single issue item that's in the budget. I would have a notebook. I would write notes. Every time like a lobbyist met with me, I'd put it in the notebook. I had this like single source of truth. And like, if I didn't know it, you had to teach me it. Where now I have to teach myself. And like,
how's that education going?
I went to a great law school, but sometimes it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And like, I have to call other people to get a better understanding.
Well, now can you just call someone in the legislature and ask?
No. I mean, that's lazy.
Why is it lazy?
It's lazy because they already have to brief members, the leader. I think it's lazy, but if that's what other people do, that's their prerogative. I try to use the resources I have, which is my team, my brain, or other smart ex-counsels that used to work in the legislature.
You know who you are because you're probably listening. Thinking about the next steps, though, you mentioned how there's obviously going to be an effort by the legislature to spend more than what the governor has laid out. On the policy front, do you think there's going to be any significant fights? Obviously, the governor has identified some criminal justice changes, whether it's discovery or involuntary commitment, something you and I have talked about in the past. But do there seem to be any other major roadblocks?
No. I thought more people would be enraged about the distracted, like the cell phone stuff. It doesn't seem like parents. No one really cares.
I think that'll unfold, though, over the weeks and months.
I think it will unfold for the municipality that has to deal with it. But for the legislature, I don't think it's going to be as, I don't know, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be as controversial. I think this is a money budget. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there'll be policy issues. There'll be a lot of fights about how much money is spent and how can you make, like childcare. I think there's money for like capital investment for childcare.
$100 million for infrastructure.
Oh, how do you look at you? But like people are going to be like,
and I read this stuff myself.
People are going to be like, if I'm, Jessica Ramos or Jabari Brispert, who cares about childcare, they probably have ideas of how to spend that money and put it into childcare. Everyone's saying, oh, change the discovery laws. I'm sure Zellner, the new chair, and Miss Walker, Assemblywoman Walker, have their own ideas on how to do it. Like, I just think this is like a boring, I don't want to say it. We got bigger issues. We got Trump. We got a mayor talking about the Democratic Party left me. Like, we got bigger issues right now. And I think people just don't want to fight. They just want to show that they are responding and doing. Because I think right now there is a feeling that there's a void of leadership. And I think I think the governor wants to show that she is being responsive. I think the smear candidates want to show that they're responsive, and I think like the legislature wants to show they're responsive. But people are just feeling weird right now. It's weird vibes.
So looking at the calendar, obviously the budget is due March 31st. They have session days scheduled for April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and Easter is April 20th.
Well, oh, you got the session calendar? I can't see.
I'm looking at it right on my handy-dandy mouse pad, courtesy of the New York State Association of School Business Officials.
Are they one of your sponsors?
No, but we do really appreciate the mouse pad. And if they want to be an underwriter, I think that would be great. So I'm looking at that. I think the budget will be done on the 11th of April. Finish out that week of that session, send it home so that they can actually take the scheduled time off as well. Because then they have 2 weeks off.
Yeah, out of your mind.
You think it'll take longer? We just said there's nothing to...
It's money, though. Like, everyone has to show that they're responsive. If the economy and groceries are the number one thing, and how are they going to fill that gap for the MTA? But these are the things. Like, yes, it's a boring budget.
When are you scheduling your vacation?
I'd like to schedule April 1st. That's the anniversary of me and my husband met. But I know that the budget will be going on, so I won't be that. If I had to say, I think Carl Hastie and the leader are going to tell their members to go home on the 9th. I'm going to go with, you vote on the 21st.
So that's over the Easter weekend.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's Easter?
20th is Easter, according to the Google Calendar.
They come back after Easter. Because you have to remember, yeah, they come back after Easter. So
that means they're going to have an extender.
Oh, there's going to have to be an extender no matter what.
A significant extender.
On the 9th, they'll vote on a 2-week extender, but they'll be done before that 2-week extender. I'm always right.
That is the catchphrase.
It's in Mark Murphy's office.
Well, on that note, we've been speaking with Shontell Smith. She's head of the New York practice for Tusk Strategies, where she is a partner and always right. Shontell, thanks for visiting us in the studio.
Thank you.